Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Renata Burwash, and I'm taking the lead in today's webinar. Along with me are my wonderful colleagues, Ada Tai and Dr. Mike Annette. As attendees of this webinar, you're automatically muted upon entry. Throughout our 40-minute presentation, we're going to be engaging you through a few chat box and poll activities. And we will leave some time at the end to answer any questions that you may have. Before we get started, to help you understand a bit about the three of us, our backgrounds and interests, we prepared a short video clip for you. So I'm going to share that with you now. Hi, I'm Renata. I'm a diversity and inclusion consultant and a director of diversity and inclusion for an Edmonton nonprofit organization. In my years of experience working with large and small businesses across industries, one thing I know is that those who make inclusion a priority not only see changes like higher engagement and productivity, companies with strong, inclusive cultures also fare better in times of change and turmoil.
Hi, I am Mike. I am a professor and most active in teaching and writing related to diversity and inclusion, health and safety, and returning to work after injury or illness. I advocate for social responsible management practices and believe there is solid D&I work to be done in society at large, the boardroom table, and on the shop floor.
Hello, I'm Ada. I'm a human resources consultant, university instructor, and a job search trainer. As a professional with a unique background in a very diversified workforce, I have seen organizations achieving their great competitive advantages by implementing inclusion strategies and practices.
Providing one-on-one and small group coaching to help managers deal with specific issues, suggesting best practices, recognizing and celebrating your organization's achievements.
Reviewing your workplace diversity and inclusion practices and physical accessibilities, measuring and analyzing employee engagement through surveys and focus groups, conducting customized research to help build business cases for decision making, and providing access to our regularly updated research, articles, tips, and trends.
We can help your organizations to review your policies, procedures, and job descriptions to make sure they're inclusive and provide you with a checklist with recommended action items. We also host a group training to improve your workplace awareness, as well as help you build that short and long-term strategic plan around D&I.
I hope you enjoyed the clip. Right now, Alberta organizations are trying to come to terms with the impact the pandemic is having on their businesses. Although the risks are extensive, the crisis has also shown companies that they can build resilience and reshape themselves for a post-crisis world. The Triangle of Inclusion, the three of us, are offering this series of free webinars, and this webinar in particular, to help ease and merge us back to the workplace in an effective and inclusive way. Through today's webinar, we'll look at some next steps for organizations, and we'll share some tips and takeaways for you. So this is the third of our three webinar series. The first webinar was on remote working communication technology. The second was on employee engagement, and today's webinar is on the gradual return to work using an inclusion model. Today in our webinar, we'll be discussing what to consider as your organization returns to work. How can you ensure it is a smooth transition while being safe for employees and ensure that everyone not only feels safe in these times in terms of their health and their own safety, but in the culture and that they feel included and engaged. I'm going to share some strategies to enhance worker engagement using diversity and inclusion approaches as a guide. And then we'll look at how you can benchmark your current state and how you can use not only this data as you move forward, but the opportunity to engage staff and set the tone for your new phase of business and new normal. Finally, we'll look at some of the learnings as a result of the pandemic and how we can use these learnings as we move forward in this new world. All of these topics are looked at with an inclusion lens. So although there are many considerations for a successful transition back to work, I'm going to start by looking at what I think are the 5 main considerations as companies are returning to work, being social distancing and sanitization training and policies. So new policies obviously will have to be made to ensure a safe workplace, and training of managers. Designated safety persons and employees will be an important step here. Physical workspace modifications, the actual changes organizations will have to make to the physical space in the workplace to ensure social distancing and minimizing shared workspaces. And then employee staggered re-entry and scheduling. When and how do you bring people back? What have you learned about remote working? And will what you've learned influence the ways you're working going forward? Staff wellness support is the fourth. This current crisis has put a great deal of stress and anxiety on employees. They have more going on at home and at work than ever before. We'll talk about how to prepare to support them and keep them engaged and productive at the same time. And then 5, testing and monitoring. What are their expectations around this? Should organizations be testing employees? What about tracking information? We'll discuss some of the legal or confidentiality concerns you might have and where you can find the advice you need because it's a really gray area for all of us. It's not really cut and dry. So before we can start to tackle the previous list of 5 considerations, we need to assess the risk for returning to the workplace. And we need to do this before we start inviting employees back so that we can build or add to our return to work strategy or playbook. Start by polishing up on your listening skills. What are employee concerns as they think about returning to work or moving from remote work back to the office, or maybe doing a combination of both? What are their solutions? What is their home situation like? Are they at a higher risk, or is someone in their family at a higher risk due to age or medical conditions? Some people might, have a partner that's at a higher risk at home. So all these things you're going to want to kind of get to understand what's going on, so you know who to bring back and when, or what other precautions to take. And so I can't stress enough that when we are using an inclusion model, times like this, when employees are fearful and overstressed, are the times that they will remember long after how they were treated by their employer and how they were listened to. So next, start thinking about the possible risks that the workplace staff may encounter in their day. We will be going through the main considerations again, but for now, for every organization, it's going to be different. And then last, begin documenting all of these risks as you are creating or adding to your return to work strategy. A simple high to low risk ranking model is one option that could be used. Again, ask for input from employees. They have been in the workplace and doing the job every day and will likely think of risks that you won't. Keep them engaged and stay transparent. This will help build trust and engagement moving forward. So social distancing and sanitization training and policies is the first main consideration. An important step, regardless of the size of your organization, is to have a dedicated safety person or people to take this on. This will save managers time. It's going to ensure employees know where to receive the answers they need. They're going to have a lot of questions and concerns. So they need to know who to go to. Employees will be looking for guidance and support. And they need to know who to go to for support as well. Having said this, managers could easily be consumed with these questions, concerns, and updates, which would make it difficult to get their now heavier workloads completed. So best practice is, of course, to have a dedicated person or people or a committee to keep up to date on the newest information surrounding the pandemic. These will be the same employees or managers who also help create the new policies and strategies, and who will be responsible for training staff, communicating with staff about the policies, concerns, and the newest info about COVID. Studies show that employees look to their employers and trust the news and the information they're receiving from the employers more so than the news and info they're receiving from mainstream. So a streamlined approach for sharing information and receiving regular feedback from employees will be important. It's going to ensure diverse perspectives on the approach, but also encourage an inclusive culture and feelings of safety and belonging within the organization. Again, managers and committee members will need additional and ongoing training around social distancing, PPE equipment such as masks, gloves, and sanitizers, and then around sanitization practices. So the designated person or group could essentially be responsible for leading the following controls: administration, which is your posters and policies, markings, markings, for instance, your arrows on the floor, and then self-assessment questionnaires. The second is engineering. So it's the separation between the person and the hazard. So any social distancing and physical changes to the environment. And then PPE, masks, hand sanitizers, gloves, and so on. Some focus may need to be put on areas such as hand washing and sanitizer stations, the sanitization of all touch points and any schedules for that, enhanced cleaning at the end of the day, regular cleaning during the day, and who would be doing that and keeping track of. PPE availability, and then any testing equipment being used, such as thermometers or screening forms. And then the sanitization of washroom facilities, including minimizing the number of people allowed in at one time, controlled use of any shared spaces such as kitchens and lunchrooms, meeting rooms, copier rooms, and then any new restrictions on any shared equipment, elevators, things like that. They're also going to want to consider check-ins with staff throughout the week, pulse surveys or in-person check-ins, and time to collect the information and then share with employees the plan changes or initiatives. How often each organization does this is going to depend on them, their size, things like that. But it could be, daily quick check-ins, it could be weekly, but as long as they're regular. The important piece is that there will need to be leaders designated to collect the info, whether it's the water cooler chats or the formal feedback, and share and act on the information. So the next consideration we're going to look at is workspace modification. So do staff share desk space? Because if they did, they don't anymore. And they probably won't anytime soon. What other shared spaces do they use? Again, lunchroom, copier rooms, supply rooms, meeting rooms. And this is why you need the risk assessment at the beginning to kind of almost walk through the space and walk through the position and see, what people will be doing in the day. Even things like the coffee pot and water cooler. There's a lot to think about, which is why organizations will need designated people for this, because they all need plans. Minimizing the number of people in workplaces will be really important. Rearranging desks or using staggered desk space for social distancing will also need to be considered. All of these plans should be easily accessible and visible to employees through posters in all the right places, and those are accessible off the government websites. So all of these visuals will also help to ensure that employees don't fall back into the pre-COVID routines once they're back at work. Employees will also need to be trained in these areas. This can be done through virtual tutorials, training manuals, or through other communication means, in person or a combination of these. So when it comes to the actual process of having employees return to the office, each organization will be different and will have to make their own decision for how and who to bring back and when, in order to balance employee safety with business productivity. So some of the main options include a staggered reentry, so bringing employees back strategically based on who you need in the office first, and staggered shifts, certain people in the workplace on certain days or certain shifts, to minimize the number of people in the space at one time. And then the last is a combination of working remotely and bringing employees back in a staggered fashion. So the first thing to do is talk to the staff. If possible, what is their preference? Many employees who had never worked remotely before have gotten really used to it and now actually prefer it. Not everyone, but studies have shown that majority of employees would prefer to work at least part-time from home. For a lot of us, it means less distraction, it means higher productivity, it means we're not spending all that time in a vehicle and we're saving money on things like gas. And it can mean a lot more work-life balance and job satisfaction. So this again will be something that employees will remember long after, how you handle this and that they have their voice heard. So organizations again need to figure out what works best for them. A combination of working remotely and in the office will work for many, but it won't work for all. The large number of businesses who have been working remotely over the last couple months are thinking about some of the benefits for themselves as well. So more productivity, a more outcomes-based approach for evaluating productivity and performance, and the opportunity to save on real estate and operational costs by either eliminating office space. So work is a very powerful determinant of our overall health. 1/2 of our waking hours are spent at work. Healthy employees are key to successful and engaged teams as well. So what can you do in your workplace to support employees during this unstable time when employees are dealing with homeschooling, layoffs, new roles as opposed to layoffs often, or changes and adaptations to the workplace, learning curves, and then uncertainty about the future and all the stress, anxiety, and other mental health concerns that are going along with this. Should you have a designated staff wellness person or team? At the end of the day, if there's not a designated person handling this, often it doesn't get done. The success really of any wellness support initiatives or programs are really dependent on who's taking care of them. Depending on the size of your company, you may want a committee with members from various departments, or you may be small enough to have one person take on the role. You may need to lighten some of their other ideas so they have time to take it on. Larger organizations may actually have a specific workplace wellness advisor position built in, or sometimes this is a combination with the diversity inclusion position itself. Again, listen, pulse surveys will help to show how employees are feeling. Also, when employees believe that their employer cares for the well-being of them, they're more engaged, and it can strengthen resilience. Build the workplace's inclusions culture, and build the organization's reputation and brand as well. The key is to have the regular communication and that designated person. Wellness initiatives can include resources and training opportunities for staff on things like healthy eating and exercise, how to stay healthier at work, managing stress and anxiety during COVID and at work and beyond, and general proactive measures for health. As we return to the workplace, this will be needed more than ever. Make sure your employees know you care about their physical health and wellness, and ask for feedback on how you can help encourage healthy choices, and let them know you're empathetic to the situation. There are many opportunities that cost little. Think about team challenges, wellness campaigns, integration of fitness into the day, such as a reminder for a quick stretch or a walk. Or some organizations that I've heard of are even doing walking meetings. So they're training their staff on how to chair meetings while they're walking, which is really interesting. Better than sitting around a boardroom every time. So organizations, there's some that I know that even do weekly team meetings in a park or even in someone's backyard. And they'll have the first part of the meeting designated for a work meeting, and the last half optional for, if you want to stick around and spend some time and do some team building and team bonding. Often the time when teams are not obligated to be talking about work are the times when they're, the most innovative. So these meetings can be very productive. So be creative. Employees will have many ideas. Some will work, some won't, but try and see if they stick.
So as you're thinking about inclusion and return to work, one of the questions you might be having is this issue around testing and monitoring. And some of the information that Renata shared before focuses on our involved aspect of our inclusion definition, which is about employees being respected, valued, supported, and involved to fully participate in their work. The testing and monitoring, we're going to focus more on the respected aspect of that definition for inclusion, and helping employees feel that they have a secure, safe place to be returning to, and that way, again, being respected. Now, should you implement regular screening protocols for employees? The government of Alberta is recommending that employers implement active daily screening. It's not saying that it's legally required, but it's certainly stressing the value of doing so. And we know in a general case that employers are obligated to take every precaution reasonable, and in the current circumstances, to protect employees and to ensure they have a safe environment to work in. And we would refer you to the information from the Alberta government and occupational health and safety about screening and protections. And in a moment, I'll put in our chat window URL you can go to for more information around this area. Now, thinking a little bit further, many companies are implementing active daily screening for symptoms of fever, sore throat, cough, runny nose, or difficulty breathing. And they're using forehead thermometers and using self-assessments forms that employees can use to fill out each day on their arrival. It's also recommended that employees keep log sheets that employees can fill out when they arrive or leave the office, and even specific work departments inside an organization, so that contact tracing and connecting back with people that may have been infected or may need to know certain things that record exists. Now, keeping track of testing in Excel work spreadsheet may be sufficient for small to medium-sized organizations. In terms of how much information you should keep tracking, we would refer you to HealthLink and to considerations under PIPA, the Personal Information Protection Act, which is about personal information, and every organization is different and has different circumstances. So there's many gray areas right now in terms of the requirements and the best formats of doing so. Now, if your organization has a union, you'll also obviously need to be reaching out to them to talk with them about their views and their concerns around these issues of testing and monitoring. This is a great time for partnership and collaboration with those entities as well. So I would refer you to alberta.ca/bizconnect. I'll put that URL in the chat box now. And there are a number of great resources there for particular industries and particular issues around return to work, and not just testing and monitoring, but other factors as well.
Great, and just now we have heard lots of good ideas, operational strategies about gradually returning employees to work. We understand that at this moment, all the businesses want to get back to work as soon as possible. We understand that employees want to get back to work and employers want to open their doors as soon as possible. There are a few steps of mindful strategies that our team wants to suggest. First of all, before we rush to open our doors, the first thing we need to think about is work planning. Which functions or which units or which teams do we want to bring back to work to start off with, so we can resume some level of operations? And then based off the units that we want to bring back to operations, the second thought is, what about the workforce planning? Who can do these jobs? Who should we bring back? And who is available and willing and healthy to do this job coming back to workplace? Do we have a contingency plan? If, let's say, we need 100 workers back to work, but only 90 of them can do the work, can take on the shifts at this moment, is there a contingency plan about who else we can bring back? The third step would be a health and safety planning. Very much like the ideas that my colleague Renata and Mike have just shared. What are some of the PPE, personal protective equipment? What are some of the engineering control and administrative controls, such as policies, procedures, training, posters, all of these good things we need to implement in the workplace before we bring the workers back to the workforce. The fourth step will be on communication planning. Let's never forget that besides employees who need to hear from the employers on a regular basis, we also have other stakeholders to take care of, such as our customers, such as our union representatives and collaborators, or even our vendors and suppliers. And the last step is on monitoring. So once we have our workers gradually returning back to work, in order to ensure the level of engagement, we want to hear their feedback. Their voice is very important. We want to also monitor the steps that we have put in place. Do they make sense? Are they working well for our workplace? What do we need to adjust? Throughout our three series of webinars, we have kept in stressing on the ideas of when it comes to a crisis situation like this right now, is that we want to make sure there is leadership. And also there is engagement from employees. The American poet and the civil rights activist Maya Angelou has once said that people will forget about what you said, people will forget about what you did, but they will never forget about how you made them feel. So make sure that your organization take this opportunity to improve on your level of engagement within the workplace. Thanks, Renata.
Great, thanks, Ada. Okay, employee engagement is best described by its results. Engaged employees demonstrate higher levels of performance, commitment, and loyalty. There are many ways to drive engagement, such as empowering your staff, clear communication, ensuring they feel supported to do their job, ensuring they feel safe and included. Benchmarking where employees are at in these areas will help you as you strategize going forward and build engagement through these channels. One of the best ways to not only measure engagement, but build engagement is through listening to your teams. Survey staff often and do pulse checks on the things you want to know. We've talked about listening and check-ins and pulse surveys throughout this webinar, as this is how you build an inclusive strategy and how you'll be able to benchmark your current state. This info is best retrieved through a combination of in-person conversations and can be tech-driven as well. SurveyMonkey or Google Forms are often used for these quick check-ins. Having a designated person again for this will work best. Let employees know what you want to know and why. And then once you collect the information you're looking for, do something with it and be transparent. The worst case is, collecting all this information and then nothing happens with it, because now you're really telling your staff, actually, we have all this information about you and heard everything, but we don't care enough to do anything about it. So even if there's a holdup, be transparent. Talk to them about what's going on and what your plans are. Okay, so whether organizations are looking for information on measuring remote work preferences, maybe wanting to get a pulse on fear and safety concerns as staff are coming back to the workplace after COVID, or wanting to hear from employees on their feelings of belonging or feeling valued. This, especially working remotely, that has been an issue for some organizations where, people aren't checking in as much, teams aren't together, so people are kind of feeling left out sometimes, not feeling valued, not feeling a part of the group. So this might be a good thing to be checking in on as you're going back to the office. And you might want to, an important one is understand mental health concerns that employees might be having at this uncertain time. All of these are going to affect employee engagement, and this information is really important moving forward in a strategic way. You'll want to know where employees are at when they return so that you can build the strategies into your work playbook. So start checking in before the employees even return if possible. Benchmarking where your current engagement is at is going to help you identify needs and next steps, and it'll let you rate how successful you were in those efforts. So wrapping up, let's talk a bit about lessons learned through this pandemic. What has changed for you and your company in the last 8 weeks? Some learnings that we've seen are resiliency. Employees and leaders have been working together and making it through and have come out stronger than ever. Many have adapted a more outcomes-driven approach now that many employees are working from home. So productivity is monitored by what is produced, since how we're not all together. And then we've realized how adaptable and innovative we can be. Many of us have been forced in a short time to innovate and adapt, and it hasn't been business as usual. So how were we still able to meet customer needs during this time? So leverage what you've learned as you move forward. Approaches will need to be flexible, risk-based, driven by the newest information from the most reliable sources, and enabled by technology. We must show utmost care and concern for people's health and well-being by creating clean, welcoming, and secure environments where workers feel safe and they feel included. Communicate early and ongoingly, and keep communicating even if you don't know the answer. Be purposeful, empathetic, and inclusive in your approach. Organizations will continue to need to build trust with employees, which will have long-lasting impacts on workforce engagement and long-term value.
We've shared lots of good ideas and about return to work strategies and operational ideas and the data. In order to wind down today's webinar, we want to share just a few other opportunities for inclusion of workers in general. You notice our triangle of inclusion image on the right-hand side of the slide. We believe that strong and meaningful inclusion requires attention and action in each area of culture, voice, and process.
Opportunities that we see for our triangle of inclusion are under culture, sustaining a group identity, under voice, seeking input on matter that affects people and their work, and process, ensuring remote and return communication happens and works. So those are our key areas that we look at when we're focusing on inclusion in the workplace.
I'm going to share just a reminder about other webinars that we have now completed. On May 14th, we had a webinar about do technologies enhance workplace communications, how to use technologies to create an inclusive culture. And in that webinar, talked about how thoughtful employers mitigate feelings of being left out, the unintentional exclusion, and some of the communications related attributes of diversity and how those relate to remote communications and engaging your employees while they're working remotely. We also had, does remote working hurt your organizational culture? And there we talked about what inclusion means and provided real data we collected with local businesses on how they effectively communicate with their workers while they're working remotely. Those 2 webinars, plus this one, are available on our website. I see listed on the screen below. And they're posted there, available through YouTube. And scrolling down that page a little bit further, you see a reminder about some of the services that we offer, including reviewing job descriptions to be inclusive and helping update your policies and procedures, providing one-on-one and small group coaching to help managers deal with specific issues, suggesting best practices, and building a 3 to 5 year strategic plan around diversity and inclusion.
If you have questions, and if you want to also add to the chat box any lessons learned that you found, or any big changes or organizations have had that you'll be carrying on with, connect with us, obviously, through any of our social media platforms. Our call to action is, get involved in your organization's person-centered return to work strategy. And if you need help, connect with us. We're a unique team to support you in your HR and diversity goals and strategies with, HR consulting expertise, academic backgrounds, and nonprofit firsthand experience with diversity in the workplace. We're here. So I hope you enjoyed the webinar, and we want to open it up to questions now.
So the way we're going to handle the questions is, please use the chat box to pose yours, and we'll be happy to answer them live for you while we're on the line. We did ask in the registration process questions that you may have or wanted to make sure we covered and addressed. So I will start with one of these, and then Renata and Ada will also share a couple perspectives on other questions. One of the questions was about mental health and what effect this will have on people as we gradually return to work. Now, while there are a few broad points to cover, and I'll get to them generally here in a moment, the issue of mental health is really going to be different for each person and each company context. We know that mental health is influenced by biological, experiential, psychological, and social factors, and really does contribute to how we think, feel, and act. In some areas where mental health of workers may appear is in their cognitive skills, their emotions, their coping skills, and their social interactions. So even there, we have a wide range of things of think, feel, and act in mind, work, emotions, coping skills, and social interactions. So getting a targeted answer is going to be very difficult. But this is an area then where employee voice and inclusion comes into play, encouraging people to speak up and to feel supported if they're experiencing challenges in any of these areas. Now, we know that there are a wide variety of stressors that may be coming at people as they're coming back to the workplace. New routines, uncomfortable being in social environments, not sure if there's changing work demands. It could be a multitude of things. And again, where the value and freedom of speaking up of those needs is highlighted, because we'll all respond to those stressors differently. Each person handles stress on their own terms, even though the stressors might be common. Now, I do want to give just a couple small examples. Consider that anxiety is a main issue, and we can see a situation where returning workers being overloaded at home has been caring for dependents, conducting their work, and managing a household. They might be feeling some relief of just being at work. Finally, they can focus. But it's possible that this chance to focus will actually be the first step in the burnout exhaustion phase. Right? A bit like when we get sick on the first day of vacation, finally we can let our guard down and it's like, oh, now I'm sick. So supervisors may need to be watchful for fuzzy minds and short tempers as people come to the workplace thinking they can now focus, and really they're realizing the full extent of their exhaustion. One other general situation that many remote workers have been in is that they're now the masters of their own domain, and for most last 2 months. So there may be some challenges within social interactions and following corporate policy, like the timing of coffee breaks, as workers readjust into a social work context. So I think similar to any form of return to work process, such as maternity leave, a long vacation, or an illness leave, we really do need to be prudent about work hardening and adjustments to ease the transition back and be in constant conversation with our employees about their needs and how we can support them readjusting to what we've said is the new normal, but really the new normal. All right, Ada and Renata, questions you had.
I had a question, how to manage employee events and team bonding after COVID. So I know many companies will probably still continue to do Zoom meetings or use, other platforms to hold kind of their larger meetings. or events. So just be creative. A lot of team building exercise can be done online. There's scavenger hunts, or how well do you know this or that person. That could get dangerous maybe. Trivia of the organization, things like that. And then depending on really the size of the organization, you can hold events or meetings again in parks or any place where you can socially distance. So I think most of the things you were doing before, you can still do. You just have to maybe be creative about it. I think a big part of team bonding will be just that feeling included. So again, including people on the decisions going forward and keeping them in the loop on what's happening is really going to help. And maybe just offering a few more of those opportunities for the first little bit, even though I know productivity is going to need to be high when people get back. And maybe even having someone set up, and if you do have a wellness person, having someone set up like after work get-togethers, unpaid, but how opportunities for people to get together after work as well as during office hours. So hopefully that helps. And then someone asked a question about the safety measures that schools will have in place to secure teacher and student safety. So schools, I don't know how much well I can answer that, but schools will be gathering their info from the same places, businesses will, with the link that Mike shared, the government websites, Alberta Biz Connect, Healthline, employment standards, but they'll also have their own rules around keeping teachers and students safe. So you'll want to look to those websites and to get the answers, or look to those designated people that are that will obviously be there to answer those types of questions on best practice or what the expectations are for teachers, and then again how they're going to be keeping teachers and students safe. And we can talk more about that one after. We can direct you to those websites if you'd like. Okay, Ada, did you have some?
Yeah, so another question that we have just collected is, what are some other approaches or strategies we have seen other organizations developed for a return to work plan? Besides what we had already shared with you, to us, in order to answer this question, is it's important for leaders to instill that confidence in the workers in order to attract them back to work. The worst case scenario you want to have is that you really have work for people to do, and you're so eager to get business back to the new norm, but people do not want to come back to work because they don't feel safe, or they're concerned that their family members may get infected if they attract some infections in the workplace. So it's really important that we give that confidence to our workers. One way of doing that is to hire professional sanitization or cleaning companies and put that as part of a routine schedule. You post a schedule so people know when to expect a professional cleaner to come into the workplace, and they know that their employers are really taking care of their health. The other thing that we would suggest is to really hear the employee's voice, really take advantage of this opportunity to hear feedback. Use that peer monitoring strategy instead of having an HR police or health and safety police, but rather have peers, rather have colleagues to kindly remind of each other, to keep the distance, to share a posted schedule about using conference rooms and etc. And the last thing I want to mention is really updating your policies and procedures. We have seen as HR professionals that many organizations really take this time to look at, evaluate their policies. Do we have a good remote workplace policy in place? Do we have a good pandemic plan in place? How about our travel policy, social media policy, sick leave policy? And on top of that, do we have a business continuity plan? So that's the answer to that question. And then the next question we have collected is, what challenges are foreseen post-pandemic in the workplace, and how to best mitigate to ensure that the organizations survive. We're not fortune tellers, so we cannot foresee every single thing is going to happen post-pandemic. But one of our concerns, and by talking with industry leaders locally, is that Some organizations that are forward thinking are really preparing for a second wave of pandemic. So again, the idea of having your policies and procedures in place, test them out, especially if you have procedures about pandemic plan, business continuity. So the question we want to ask ourselves is, how can we ensure our business continue to thrive, continue to grow if there is a second wave? And also, once you have the plans developed, you want to make sure they're being tested, they're being trained, communicated across the organization so everybody is aware of their roles and what to do in different circumstances. So I hope that's answered the questions. If you have any further questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box, and we will stay here not to have any lunch until we have answered all your questions.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.